Welcome back to the What You More podcast. I'm your host, Quinton Harris. You're dialed in for episode 209. So, are you a homeowner? Are you a home buyer? Are you looking to sell your home? Are you in real estate? Are you in mortgages? This episode's for you because here's what we're going to do. We're going to battle why real estate prices haven't crashed in this rising rate environment. So, let's start with a couple of things here. You guys know by listening to this, I'm not the biggest fan of many social media YouTubers out there that want to just say, hey, real estate's crashing, and here's why. We're going to talk a lot about that here in these two episodes. But the question I think is worth asking is, why do real estate prices continue to rise even as mortgage rates have gone higher? Because a number of people predicted that, hey, home prices were going to crash or would experience steep drops as mortgage interest rates rise. And as they went up, they said this would cause people to not buy and homeowners that need to sell at lower price points, therefore crashing the market. And I think it's interesting because there's a lot of reasons why that's not happening. So all that and more in this next episode of What You Want More. All right, so hey, this isn't a new topic, right? We've been building on this, talking about it for quite some time now, and it's a lot of nonsense that's out there. You know how I feel. Talking about all of 2012 forward, I'm going to break down why people thought the market was going to crash, right? But all the way through 2024, we've been showing you why these home prices are going up and all the hype that's been surrounding these crashes and et cetera. It just isn't happening. And there's a lot of reasons why that's not happening. But the first thing is it's a trendy topic, right? I mean, I look at the people that go around that talk about housing crashes, and I look at how many views they have, how many subscribers, how many followers. It's insane because I think it's what people that don't own a home want to hear, right? And I also think that when you look generationally, and we talked about this on a couple episodes, the average first-time home buyer being at 33 to 35 years old, that also is a bulk of your social media users as well. And I think they're kind of liking this and liking the idea that a housing crash is going to happen because then that means they can get their home that they want, or they can get a cheaper home, or they can time the market, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of it's just false narrative. I mean, I can't really describe it anything other than that because in this episode I want to explain that why even through 2024, this crash hasn't happened. And think about this, even in the third calendar year of the lowest home sales ever, and we're adjusting, for the workforce, national home prices have not crashed. Let that set in for a minute. Like we're at levels that, according to these YouTubers, according to social media people, this should be happening, and it hasn't. So what I want to do is I want to do a quick rewind over the last 13 years. I get pretty worked up about this topic, but over the last 13 years, let's talk about this, right? So I'm going to start with 2012. If you recall, I've been doing this for 23 years. I go back to 2012. One of the things was all this shadow inventory is going to crash the market. Now, for all of the naysayers online, this is what they went after: shadow inventory. Shadow inventory is where you have looming inventory in the background that's not accounted for that could rapidly come to the market and add so much inventory and so many options that it would become a buyer's market, and that sellers would have to effectively lower their home prices to compete. And what consisted of that shadow inventory were people that were these were like bank-owned properties, if you may, that they had sitting in the background they hadn't listed, sellers that needed to sell but were just waiting on the time to do it, maybe because they were upside down and they were going to turn into a foreclosure or let it go to short sale. And then also people in general that were looking for the timing of the market. Like there was a lot of this consistent, like, okay, I'm give up. It's not there. I'm over with. Just put it out there. So this was like looming shadow inventory led by bank-owned properties. Guess what? Never came to the market. Never happened. No crash happened. 2013, I'll tell you what did happen in 2012. Real estate went up 6% annually. No shadow inventory, no decline. 2013, this one is a looming topic that happens all the time. We're in it right now, been in it for the last 20 months. There's going to be higher mortgage rates. Higher mortgage rates are going to cause a crash. Why? Well, because again, people can't afford a home. So the sellers are going to have to lower their prices to make it affordable for buyers to come to the market. Well, guess what happened in 2013? Go back to my chart again. 2013, real estate went up a whopping 11% in a higher mortgage rate environment. 11%. That's 17% between the 2 years. That's interesting. 2014, the naysayers said, oh, hey, the Fed has stopped quantitative easing. Sound familiar? We just went through that. Quantitative easing in 2014 stopped in 2024. It stopped in the end of October in 2014. Well, what happened in 2014? I go back to my chart again. Real estate went up 5%. Starting to see a trend here, right? In 2015, they said, oh, there's a recession in manufacturing, meaning that we're not going to have enough housing because we're not going to have enough jobs, we're not going to have enough housing, enough production. There's a manufacturing recession. Housing's going to crash. What happened in 2015? Housing went up 5%. In 2016, home prices got back to the bubble high. Does this sound familiar? This is like history repeating itself. I talk about this all the time. And for my history buffs, on that last episode we did with the Federal Reserve, and we showed about history repeating on there, you guys liked that. That was a high viewing episode. We got a lot of comments on that. So I'm going to continue with this history pattern here because you guys tend to like that. And what you're telling me is that you like facts over fear. So I'm going to continue to provide that here. In 2016, home prices got back to the bubble high, meaning that home prices got back to the 2008 highs. And hey, we're cresting at that magical 2008 number. They're going to crash again. This is what the propaganda online is using as reasons to why you're going to have a housing crash. Well, what happened in 2016? I mean, you get the trend here. We went up another 5%. 2017, hey, there was no good reason as to why it was going to crash. There was nothing happening in the market. But because of coming off that bubble high and those other 6 years I just talked about, those compounding factors are exactly why they thought the crash was going to come. Didn't come. 2017, you guessed it, 6% increase. 2018, hey, we had 5% mortgage rates come to the table, and whoo, hey, we weren't ready for that, according to the naysayers and the YouTubers online. The crash is coming because, again, the higher rates have now gotten to a point that we haven't seen in quite some time. This is definitely the start of the bubble crash. So 2018 is when you went from having, I don't know, some people online going out there trying to be Nostradamus and predict everything, to saying, yep, this is the bubble, this is going to happen, to now you have thousands, I repeat, of people between Twitter, which is now X, you've got IG, you've got every social media, and you've got YouTube, and they are blowing it up about housing crash. People made careers at this point predicting a housing crash. Didn't happen. 2018, again, what happened? 5%. 5%. 2019, home price growth was cooling off, meaning, oh my goodness, we're not growing as a rapid rate, but we're still growing. But because we're not growing as fast as we were, it's going to crash. No, it didn't. 2019, 4%. That's right. It wasn't growing as much. It didn't grow at the 5%, but it's 4%. So that's not a good sign. Things are getting bad. And then 2020, we all know what happened, COVID. I think it was a flip of a coin. I mean, I honestly think that could have gone either way. If the government wouldn't have come in and infused and given so much relief that they did, that could have gone the other way. But what we found was in 2020, the need to be at home created a desire for your home to be a certain way and provide certain things as home offices, more space. The list goes on and on. It actually became more valuable by so much. I mean, it was extreme of how bad that went and started to increase. So we're not even going to talk about what happened in 2020 because during that time, well, I mean, that's when things became double digits. You had 10% in 2020. In 2021, there was this fear of mortgage forbearance, meaning people don't have to make their payments. And so because they're not making their payments, how are the lenders going to handle it? How are the markets going to handle it? Oh my gosh, it's going to crash. It's 2008 all over again. No, it wasn't. It was 20% increase is what it was. And then 2022, the world kind of stopped on a dime here. We had bank failures. We had mega issues going on. This was definitely the sign of the apocalypse. 2008 was going to happen, but it didn't. Even at 7% mortgage rates, it didn't happen. And we talk about this because in 2022, you had 6% increase in 2022. So then you're talking about, well, in 2023, there's just this low demand for housing. It's not the fact that it's a low demand for housing. You've got a tremendous pent-up inventory that we've documented for the last 2 years on this show of what's going on. It's literally the fact that there isn't enough inventory and there isn't enough pricing affordability on inventory to create this further transactional demand that's happening. So because we don't have all these transactions taking place, that means we're going to have a foreclosure. No, you had 6% increase. 6%. And year to date right now with higher mortgage rates, higher inventory, this silver tsunami we keep hearing about, right, that I've talked about, the lock-in effect, credit card debt, et cetera. So take your pick. It doesn't matter. You're currently at 2% increase currently year to date. And all this data that I'm talking about is coming from the Case-Shiller. And I think that when we take a look at their overall index, that's kind of the gold standard. That's why we're using that. But the one thing I wanted to say was I look at this and I put together some notes, and this chart's from the Housing Wire. Props to the guys and Logan over at Housing Wire for putting this chart together. You'll see it in our YouTube channel at What's Your One More. But guys, this thing goes all the way back to 1942. And what you'll find in this chart is if you take out the 2007 to 2011 greatest real estate depression ever, recession, whatever you want to call it, yeah, there's your negative years. Outside of that, from 1942 to 2024, you have 1 year of negativity. And it's -1. I mean, you could almost argue, was that flat? But it's negative, right? I'll give it that. But 1 year. 1 year outside of a Great Depression in the history of real estate. 1 year. So I go back to this naysaying doom and gloom, and I'm like, well, this is internet people wanting attention. I just gave you 2012 through 2014 statistical data that shows all the reasons that this market was supposed to crash. And then I show you how it actually appreciated during that time. And what I think is this: when you go into attention, these guys aren't right. These people are not right. They're staying up and down. They have all of these basically screenshots, these crazy things that show houses on fire, whatever it is to get your attention. Stop letting them influence with misinformation. I mean, we talk about political misinformation. Let's talk about housing misinformation. This is awful. So here's my thing. If they can't publish their name, like if you look at their YouTube channel, they don't even show you their name. They don't show you where they work. They don't show you their credentials. They don't show you any type of historical forecast or any type of modeling over the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. It's trash. It's trash. They're probably sitting in their basement. They're probably sitting in their bedroom, scrolling, trying to figure out what topic they're going to blow up next so they can get clicks to influence their ability to make money. But it has no bearing on what we're actually talking about in today's world. And so I go back to the beginning of this episode. Are you in real estate? Are you a mortgage professional? We have to battle this nonsense with people all day long because unfortunately, home buyers are susceptible to this misinformation. I challenge you, share these facts, share the data, share this episode. I mean, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on every platform. Share this episode. I look at it this way. This is a must listen to episode. You've got to get this one out there because we are fighting a battle right now with misinformation on homeownership that's just so incorrect that it's appalling. And I tell you this because I've seen consumers be influenced to the point to where they fail to make a decision on real estate because of something they've read or seen online via a person that doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. So back to my point, I kind of digress there. Why haven't home prices crashed when higher mortgage rates have persisted over this year, last year, and the year before? So again, I talk about the history repeating itself like I did on the Federal Reserve. And the one thing I wanted to go through here was this. When you look about a housing crash and basically the addicts as to why their home foreclosures, why this home foreclosure is going to happen, what's going to take place, there's something that's really interesting about this. What happened in 2000, I guess this chart shows 2007 to 2011. There's a formula for it took place. And I think it's really important that we look at it here. And I'm pulling it up on my show notes here. The formula that took place was that you had sellers that had to sell properties that didn't have equity, and you didn't have buyers that wanted those properties, and you had higher rates. Well, you're missing a major part of that formula in this particular environment that we're in right now. And that formula is that you don't have sellers that have to sell. And you have sellers with a tremendous amount of equity. You have sellers that are in control of their destination on these properties compared to where they were in 2007, 8, 9. And I think that is a really big differential when you look at where we are today versus where we were then. So it's interesting to me because I'm just going to break down some national data here. And this is a median price, again, national, but I do want to go through it here. Let's take a look at this. When you're looking at today's existing homes sales report, here's what I look at. Why haven't they crashed over a year based on this report? To get a real, to get a real price of this, for example, of a crash, I'd have to see a surge of housing inventory and distressed sellers. I don't have that right now. I don't have a surge in this. If you look at these graphs on our YouTube channel, again, at What's Your One More that I'm putting in here, you'll see the inventory is growing, right? It's growing and it's healthy and it's getting to levels that we need to see. But you'll also see this, that many people right now, they'll try to trick you online. They'll try to say, well, home prices are declining right now in the second half of the year. Guess what? That's seasonal. It's normal. Every year, that's normal. It doesn't mean the overall yearly average went down. I just gave you those statistics. But I've seen knuckleheads come online right now and go, oh, home prices are declining month over month. Here it is. It's happening. No, that's a seasonal adjustment. That happens all the time like that. At the end of the year, we look at the total amount of appreciation, not the month by month. And I think that's something that when you can take a headline, you can take any type of statistic, manipulate it. Again, these jokers are not for real. And no one likes to be wrong online. No one likes to be wrong. That's why these dudes will argue this to the end of the day. I mean, let's go back to something I pull up here. Charlie, my producer, he showed me this cat on YouTube. To give you a perspective of how manipulated this is, this dude goes to a new construction site. New construction site. Now, if you've ever been to a new construction site, there's a lot of dirt, right? You got massive dumpsters. You probably got a couple porta potties. You got some big white signs that have the plans in there that are kind of put in these little compartments. And then you have houses, and they're in all different levels, right? All the way from just complete dirt to slab, vertical, you've got the lumber up, you've got the framing. I mean, the list goes on and on. They're in different phases. This dude walks through a neighborhood in Florida and says, oh man, look, the builders are abandoning the build. They're no longer building. Even the builders have stopped building. Housing's out of a crisis. This is what 2008 looked like. And in the background, you can see the supplies sitting there for that house and the next house and the next house and the next house. You can see what was being done in the phases. The workers aren't there for that phase yet because they're finishing out another phase. But this dude makes it upon himself to go down a street and actually act as if that building community was not built and was left standing. Things he didn't say, what the community was, where the community was located. It was just in Florida because he was blasting Florida about, going upside down on properties. He had traveled there to make a point. And he also didn't name the builder. You want to know why? Because I bet you that damn community's finished right now and sold out and completed. And I guarantee if I went down there and did that same walk he did, there'd be beautiful homes all over the area that are completed, because that is complete nonsense. And that's the manipulation. That's the product that's being delivered out there. And that's that misinformation that's being delivered. But yeah, consumers see that and they're like, oh man, maybe this guy's onto something. No, he's not. He's not on anything. He's on to how can I get you to subscribe to my channel so I can sell ads so that YouTube and the ad companies can pay me money so I can continue this nonsense because I don't have a real job doing real data, real work. That's what's happening with that guy in that particular episode. So here's one thing. If prices follow volume, right? If prices follow volume, meaning that if the argument to these YouTubers, these social media experts per se, if prices follow volume, meaning as volume goes up, price should go up. As volume goes down, price should go down. This is part of their argument. If prices were to follow volume, why haven't the national home prices seen a steep decline or any decline in that manner? Because volume's down. Well, I'll tell you why. Because you need to add a distressed seller into the mix, like what we saw in 7 through 11, and we simply don't have that. That is why home prices have not gone backwards when mortgage rates have gone up. However, hang in there with me. Part 2 is even better because I got more data to share, and I think you guys are really going to appreciate that. So if you like what you're hearing, please share this episode. 5-star review it, send it to a friend, send it to a family, send it to someone you think is thinking about buying a home, or someone that's brainwashed because they watch too much YouTubers and the doom porn that they put out there. But leave us a review. Check us out at our YouTube channel at What's Your One More. Guys, I appreciate the feedback. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you at the next episode at What's Your One More.
Got one more shot, I'm gonna make it. One more chance, I'm gonna take it. I meant it when I said it, now it's time for me to do it. I got one life to live, so I put my all into it, yeah.